Language learning can be really difficult, and sometimes the difficulty within language learning doesn't actually have anything to do with studying the language as much as it has to do with choosing the language in which you study. Some people struggle with this more than others, but the main reason that I've struggled with this in the past is due to decision paralysis. I don't see a lot of people in the language community talking about decision paralysis. However, it's something that I would like to touch on, talk about what I was going through with this, and then of course what I did in order to ultimately get through the process of deciding where to go. The easiest way to describe decision paralysis is with a metaphor using Netflix. You come home from work, you're tired, you decide, I've got a couple of hours before bed, so I want to watch a movie and just kind of wind down. So you get on Netflix, you look at a couple of things and you say, okay, this movie looks good, I think I'm gonna watch that. But then you think, well, let me make sure there's nothing else in order to make sure I get the value out of my time, make sure I'm watching the best movie possible. So as you continue through the catalog, you see another movie and it looks really, really good, and ultimately you decide, you know what, I'm gonna watch this movie and not the first one. But then you start thinking, well, but I found this movie, so maybe there's something I wanna watch even more just a little bit further down the list. So you keep scrolling down the list until you find another movie and you say, okay, this movie looks pretty good. I don't think I'd wanna watch it more than the movie that I'm currently on, so I'm gonna add this to my list. I'll watch it later, but I am going to scroll just a little bit more because this movie is really good, so the next one that I see might be something even better. And ultimately you repeat this cycle over and over for all 2 hours that you had until bed. You never decide on watching anything, you never make a choice, and it's because you have so many choices. My process with decision paralysis started when I started thinking about my son Noah, who is going to be going into kindergarten this year. A few weeks ago, I started thinking I'm going to have a lot more time to spend learning languages. In the past, I have learned and it's been really, really good, but I've never actually fully been able to commit tons of time without being interrupted. Now, obviously, I would rather be interrupted by my son than study language, so that's not an issue. But as far as being a language learner, I would like to have an hour or 2 or 3 uninterrupted. That way my brain can focus on the language and get used to hearing the sounds without a break and going back to English. The biggest hurdle came from trying to decide what I wanted to learn. I've been studying Mandarin for about 2 months now, and I thought, okay, maybe I will continue on with Mandarin. But then I started thinking, well, with Mandarin, there's not a whole lot of content that I enjoy, so maybe I should go to something like Japanese since I'll be able to spend much more time with the language, and there's a lot more content made for Japanese. So I decided to go to Japanese. Then after thinking about Japanese, I started thinking about how realistically the media is not all stuff that I would enjoy. Anime is not something that I currently watch. I've watched it very sparsely, but not a ton. And manga is not really anything that I have a whole lot of interest in. And J-dramas are cool. There are some that I like, but they're not my favorite. So I thought, well, maybe I should jump to Korean because I think K-dramas are fantastic. It is my favorite media, so maybe Korean is the way to go. After thinking about Korean for a while, I started thinking, well, I already know so much Japanese, and Korean would be just me starting over, so maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe instead, since I've been going after these Asian languages for so long, maybe I should go to something with more so of a Latin-based alphabet or something to where I would be a little more used to it and could make progress a little quicker. I've studied Norwegian before, and I thought maybe switching to Norwegian would be a good thing. I've spent a lot of time with it, therefore I could probably get really good at Norwegian really quickly, and then I could move on to something else. However, with the amount of time that I would be spending in Norwegian, there's not a whole lot of content, and it would take me a little bit longer to find the content because it's not as readily available as other languages. From there, I thought about other things that I could do, such as just completely starting a new language that I've not really studied before, and I thought about Finnish. Finnish is a language that I have dabbled in the past, however, I've never spent a ton of time in, so I thought maybe I could do Finnish, and that would make things a whole lot easier because it's a brand new language, and it's something I could sink my teeth into and really get into the culture and everything like that. The problem with Finnish is, unless you go to Finland, you're not really going to be able to speak to a lot of Finns. Yes, you could do it online, but I also really like face-to-face conversation. And once I did that, I realized, well, maybe I should go back to Mandarin. Once I decided on Mandarin, I thought to myself, okay, this is great. This is what I want. But then doubt started creeping into my head because I thought to myself, but is it really worth spending 4 to 5 years learning Mandarin if the only time I'm really going to be able to use it is once or twice a month when I go to a restaurant? because at the end of the day, I don't really care a whole lot about Mandarin content. I do like it a lot, but some of it can be a little bit hard to find, and it's not as readily available as a language like Japanese. So then I decided to go back onto Japanese, and the entire cycle started again. I went through all these languages, maybe even some different ones than Norwegian or Finnish, and the cycle kept repeating and repeating and repeating. So how did I beat decision paralysis? I sat down and I made a list of everything I wanted in my life with a language, personal and in YouTube or anything in between that I thought was relevant to why I wanted to learn language. Do I value the idea of learning a language for YouTube more so than I do for functional reasons? Do I want to talk to people more than I want to watch content? I started putting realistic timeframes on the language in order for me to achieve a level of fluency to where I can comprehend and conversate within the same language. So that's 3 to 5 years for learning Mandarin in order to speak to somebody occasionally, or 2 to 3 years in Japanese to be able to watch content that I honestly don't watch outside of just learning Japanese anyway. Is it worth starting Korean from scratch and spending 4 to 5 years on a language that I know not really anything about, especially in comparison to Japanese where I already know a decent bit, but the content in Korean is something that I do enjoy and I can indulge in every day. By making this list, it really helped me determine what I valued most in language learning, and it helped me make the decision. I also realized that if I did not make a decision soon, within a full year, I would be in the same situation that I currently am and have made no progress in any language, so I needed to decide now. I can learn more than one language. I just need to choose something now, start on it, get good at it, and then start on another. Because in 10 years, I would rather be able to say that I speak 2 additional languages versus just English than I would be able to say, well, I've dabbled in 100 languages and I honestly can't speak any of them. I can learn all 3 Asian languages or maybe a Scandinavian language or anything like that. I just need to pick one now, focus on it, get good, and then we can worry about the rest later. I know this video is a bit different from my normal type of video, but this is a topic that I don't see a ton of people talking about. It's always considered dabbling or something like that, which I personally love. I love dabbling. I don't think I have to tell anybody that. But I just wanted to make a video discussing the matter. I would love to see more creators talk about this, and I would love to know what your all's thoughts on this specific topic of decision paralysis within language learning are. I hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, I'll see you in the next one.